Good morning and welcome to lesson 2 of the Faith Crisis course. Let me share my screen with you and let's get down to business here. Today's lesson is distinguishing between doubts and questions, or questions and doubts, as the screen says. The course, of course, is how to turn a faith crisis on any church topic into a faith-building opportunity when you have questions, concerns, or doubts about church history, doctrines, or policies. And today, I want to focus on questions and doubts. So pause the video right now and get out of your study journal. And in your study journal, I want you to list some of your most pressing questions about the church. What are your questions or doubts about any topic related to church doctrines, policies, practices, or history? Do that right now. Put it in writing. It's important you put it in writing. I'm going to come back to it in a minute. I want to compare the church to a puzzle with many pieces. And there are a lot of pieces of the church. There's the commandments, Joseph Smith, church policies, Jesus Christ, social issues, leaders in church history. There's more than that, by the way. Each puzzle of the piece represents a church topic. Some are colored, some are white. I'll explain why in just a minute here. All the topics, there are tons of topics. I got this from the church website. Everything from Mother in Heaven to using the word Mormonism to women in the church, 296 topics. Of course, there's probably more, but these are the ones that were on the church website. The white pieces of the puzzle are the things that you really love about the church. An ideal puzzle, it'll all be white. In reality, it's not. Because the colored pieces, these are the questions that you have, the doubts you have, the concerns you have. And if you've got colored pieces, you're a normal person. I do. I mean, we all do. So that's good, I guess. In an ideal world, you would have a perfect understanding and a testimony of every church topic, and your church puzzle would be complete. You would see the finished puzzle. There's be no questions unanswered. But in reality, you will probably be putting together your church puzzle throughout your life. And you're going to leave this life not having all of your questions answered. I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news, but that's just the way it is. There's just too many topics that come up that you have questions about. Again, the white puzzle, these are the pieces that things that you love about the church. And what do you love about the church? Well, if you're like me, I love Jesus Christ, my foundation. I love Joseph Smith, even though there are questions about Joseph Smith. I love that our church has an emphasis on families, a sense of community, a pioneer heritage, which I'm very proud of because my ancestors walked across the plains. I love the members, not all of them, but I love the members of the church. I think that's a good thing. I love the fact that we have living prophets, temples dotting the earth. I love the temple. I love that I have scriptures, kind of my handbook for life. The commandments, I'm okay with the commandments, although some I don't understand. I love the commandments. I love missionary work. I had a wonderful mission. I love the humanitarian efforts that the church does. These are the white things of the church, the things that are really good for me. You know, big heart, love them all. Now, the colored puzzle pieces, these are your concerns or your questions. And if you're like some people, you have questions about God. Does he exist? Joseph Smith, was he the prophet? Women in the priesthood, you wonder why women are not, half the general authorities. And I don't know. I mean, these are things. You may have questions about the commandments. Mother in Heaven may be a topic you've thought about. Church history, things in the church that kind of bother you and, you don't know what to do about it. Social issues and the church's stance on social issues. The church, where all the money's going, and the church seems to have enough of it these days. Race in the priesthood. All people could, all men could exercise their priesthood starting in 78. That could be a question for you. Plural marriage, that might be a question for you, why we did it, why some people are doing it now. Church policies, which continue to change. LGBTQ issues may be a question you have. Book of Mormon, DNA. Again, this is not an exhaustive list, okay? Some of these topics might be big deals to you. Some may be little deals, they may be small, they're just no big deal to you. Again, ideally, it would be good for you and me to understand and believe all these topics and they'd have equal value. And it's just not like that, guys and gals. No matter the size, it's okay to have questions. It's okay to have these colored pieces in your soul here. So today's focus is on doubts versus questions. The Lord has talked about this word. What does the Lord say about doubt? Look unto me in every thought, doubt not and fear not, in D and C. And whosoever shall believe in my name, doubting nothing, unto him will I confirm all my words, even unto the ends of the earth. That's Mormon 9:25. The next verse, and now behold, who can stand against the works of the Lord? Who can deny his sayings? Who will rise up against the almighty power of the Lord? Who will despise the works of the Lord? Who will despise the children of Christ? Behold, all ye who are despisers of the works of the Lord, for ye shall wonder and perish. And I'm underlining words that are kind of synonymous with doubting. Next verse. Oh, then, despise not and wonder not, but hearken unto the words of the Lord, and ask the Father in the name of Jesus for what things soever ye stand in need. Doubt not, but be believing. There it is again. And begin as in times of old, and come unto the Lord with all your heart, and work out your own salvation with fear and trembling before him. So bottom line, the Lord says, don't doubt. Easier said than done, right? Elder Del Renlin and his wife taught about doubt. 10 slides. I'm going to let you play it. It's going to take about 6 or 7 minutes to hear that all. So if you don't want to do it, fast forward, but it's worth it. So listen to what they have to say.
The question urged by Moroni that we ask concerning the Book of Mormon is one motivated by faith and therefore leads to more faith. If we instead start with the question, couldn't these things not be false? It leads to doubt, and doubt never leads to faith.
And doubt never leads to faith. Let's find out why. Oh, I created this graphic. Sorry, I was getting by it here. So at a point of concern, you kind of have two options. One is you can go forward in faith, or two, you can go down the dark hole of doubt. To me, doubt is a form of being prejudiced, meaning you're making a decision before you've really done your homework on it. Maybe you have done your homework. I'm not judging you for that, but at this point, you can either have a doubting heart or a faithful heart.
On one occasion, while attending a stake conference, a stake president asked me to visit with a man whom I'll call Stephen. Stephen had been a faithful member of the church. He had served a mission and had married in the temple. He had served faithfully for many years, but began to have doubts about the church. As I visited with Stephen, he said that he had concerns about the fact that Joseph Smith related 4 versions of the first vision. He thought this might mean that Joseph Smith made up his experience. I put Stephen in contact with a man who had researched these 4 versions decades earlier. Stephen visited with the researcher. The next time I spoke with Stephen, I said, "So, how do you feel about the first vision?" He said, "Well, I feel okay about that because my questions have been answered. That no longer bothers me."
Okay, so on this particular topic of Joseph Smith, in 2 more lessons, we're going to be talking about Joseph Smith and the multiple visions he had, but that's not the that's not the issue here. The issue is that you can choose a topic, and if you don't know enough about it, you may have some doubts about it. He goes on.
But now I'm really concerned about the polygamy that was practiced in Nauvoo and after the manifesto in 1890. That's really troubling me. I asked Stephen to visit with someone who had researched these topics in reliable primary sources. After that discussion, I contacted Stephen and asked how he was doing. He said, "Well, that doesn't bother me anymore. I understand what happened and my concerns have been resolved. But now I'm really concerned that the priesthood was withheld for a time from those of African descent."
See, I like this Stephen guy. He's looking at all aspects of the church, and which is good, but the doubting part is not what you want to have here. Listen.
Sadly, Stephen had chosen to be a perpetual doubter. For him, doubting pleased him more than knowing, and he was digging up in doubt what he had planted in faith. As time went on, as one concern was resolved, another one was found. No matter how much anyone tried to respond and answer these questions, he found another topic on which he was anxious. He focused on the dents in the boat instead of on the capability of the boat to lead him to the blessings of the atonement of Jesus Christ. What Stephen was doing is a form of church history whack-a-mole. You know, the children's game where a mole pops up from a board, and as soon as you hit it, another mole pops up in its place. While further intellectual information may temporarily resolve an intellectual concern, further information is not the complete solution because, as Paul wrote to the Corinthians, "But the natural man receiveth not the things of the Spirit of God, for they are foolishness unto him, neither can he know them, because they are spiritually discerned." Faith in Jesus Christ and a witness born of the Spirit are also needed. Many who have questions, who have already doubt in their mind, have difficulty finding their spiritual footing. They have nonetheless stayed faithful and have remained on the covenant path. Often, as they've prayed, they've received the answer Elder Neil L. Anderson received decades ago when he wondered whether he was adequately prepared to enter the mission field. As he prayed, the feeling came, "You don't know everything, but you know enough." At times, in fact, often, the Lord's answer will be, "You know enough to stay on the covenant path." And when Nephi was asked if he knew what the condescension of God was, he said, "I know that God loveth his children. Nevertheless, I do not know the meaning of all things." He knew enough. In this life, we will never know the meaning of all things, but we know enough. Our destinies depend on exercising embryonic faith that will grow as we act in faith.
Do you remember that slide I just showed you that had those 296 topics? If you knew everything about every one of those topics, you'd be a gospel scholar. But a lot of things you're just not going to know in life, and you're going to have to go on faith. And I believe that that's what they're trying to say here.
Doubt is not and will never be the precursor of faith, any more than light depends on darkness for its creation. Peter wasn't told as he was slipping into the water after having tried to walk on it, "Oh, Peter, if only you had more doubt." No, he was told, "O thou of little faith, wherefore didst thou doubt?" In the lectures on faith, the difference between faith and doubt are explained. Where doubt and uncertainty are, faith is not, nor can it be. For doubt and faith do not exist in the same person at the same time. Persons whose minds are under doubts and fears cannot have unshaken confidence, and where unshaken confidence is not, there faith is weak. And where faith is weak, the persons will not be able to contend against all the opposition, tribulations, and afflictions which they will have to encounter in order to be heirs of God and joint heirs with Christ Jesus. And they will grow weary in their minds, and the adversary will have power over them and destroy them.
To have questions about the church and its doctrine is normal and the root of gospel learning. Joseph Smith understood that when he read, "If any of you lack wisdom, let him ask of God, that giveth to all men liberally, and upbraideth not, and it shall be given him." But the passage continues, "But let him ask in faith, nothing wavering." In other words, ask God, not doubting that he can give you an answer.
I want to emphasize this part right here where it says to have questions about the church and its doctrines is normal and the root of gospel learning. But as the Lord would say himself, doubt not, but be believing. So how do you do it? Again, when you have faith, it's going to lead towards light. When you have doubt, it's going to lead towards darkness. Asking questions leads to answers. Where are you? When you have a point of concern, are you going to be living on faith, or are you going to go down the rabbit hole of doubt? See, this is the point. If you're living on faith, you're desiring to believe, and you're experimenting on the word. You're growing, you're asking questions, you're increasing in light. You're believing, you're acting in faith, you're learning, and you become a point where you know the subject so much that you're proselyting, you're converting people, you're obeying, you're enduring to the end. When on the doubt side, you have questions and you start disobeying and doubting, you're unbelieving, you start criticizing the church, and your light decreases, and you destroy the faith that you had, and eventually you'll apostatize. Elder Eyring, to ask and to answer questions is at the heart of all learning and teaching. Jesus taught by asking questions. If you're going to go through the New Testament and look at the way that Christ taught, he was always asking questions. The restoration of this church came when Joseph Smith asked questions. He didn't doubt, he just asked. In the midst of the war of words and tumult of opinions, I often said to myself, what is to be done? Who of all these parties is right? Or are they all wrong together? If any one of them be right, which is it, and how shall I know? Joseph Smith History 1, chapter, verse 10. While I was laboring under the extreme difficulties, again, I'm underlining key words here. While I was laboring under the extreme difficulties caused by the contest of these parties of religionists, I was one day reading the Epistle of James, first chapter and the 5th verse, which reads, if any of you lack wisdom, let him ask of God, that giveth to all men liberally and upbraideth not, and it shall be given him. I'm sharing this story that is probably very familiar with you to encourage you to ask questions. Don't doubt, but keep asking questions and doing your homework. At length, I came to the conclusion that I must remain in darkness and confusion, or else I must do as James directs, and that is, ask of God. I at length came to the determination to ask of God, concluding that if he gave wisdom and would give liberally and not upbraid, I might venture. Notice that all these are action words that I'm going to do something about my confusion, my questions. So in accordance with this, my determination to ask God, I retired to the woods to make the attempt. It was on the morning of a beautiful, clear day, early in the spring of 1820. It was the first time in my life that I had made such an attempt. For amidst all my anxieties, I had never as yet made the attempt to pray vocally. I want you to ponder this story. This is a very incredible story about a man, Joseph Smith, who wanted to know. My object in going to inquire of the Lord was to know which of all the sects was right, that I might know which to join. No sooner, therefore, did I get possession of myself so as to be able to speak than I asked the personages who stood above me in the light, which of all the sects was right. For at this time it had never entered into my heart that they were all wrong, and which I should join. That's the end of the Joseph Smith story. So how do you get answers to your doubts, concerns, and questions? Elder Ballard said, when someone comes to you with a question or concern, please do not brush the question off. Do not tell him or her to not worry about the question. Please do not doubt the person's dedication to the Lord or his work. Instead, help the person find the answers to their questions. And that is the purpose of this course. People have come to me, and I don't want to brush you off. These are real feelings and real questions and concerns that you have. Elder Uchtdorf, my dear young friends, we are a question-asking people because we know that inquiry leads to truth. Elder Widsoe said a long time ago, doubt, therefore, can be and should be only a temporary condition. In other words, doubt must never itself be an end. Doubt as an objective of life is an intellectual and spiritual offense. Doubt, unless transmuted into inquiry, has no value or worth in the world. So when you have doubts, maybe this is just a matter of semantics, I don't know, but when you have doubts, translate that into inquiry. I'm going to teach you in a future lesson on how do you study, how do you research, where do you go? Elder Hunter, President Hunter, these doubts can be resolved if those who doubt have an honest desire to know the truth by exercising moral, spiritual, and mental effort. It's not easy, by the way. They will emerge from the conflict into a firmer, stronger, larger faith because of the struggle. They have gone from a simple, trusting faith through doubt and conflict into a solid, substantial faith which ripens into testimony. Do you want to know the mysteries? The more you study, the more you're going to learn. And therefore, he that will harden his heart, the same receiveth the lesser portion of the word. And he that will not harden his heart, to him is given the greater portion of the word, until it is given unto him to know the mysteries of God, until he know them in full. So if you have doubts or concerns or questions, start the study process. For behold, thus saith the Lord, I will give unto the children of men line upon line, precept upon precept, here a little and there a little. And blessed are they who hearken unto my precepts and lend an ear unto my counsel, for they shall learn wisdom. For unto him that receiveth I will give more, and from him that shall say, we have enough, from them shall be taken away even that which they have. So I view this study of questions as like a sunrise where it gets a little bit lighter, 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 lighter. It takes time. It doesn't come all at once. Sometimes it does, but not always. Final quote.
Some might ask, but what about my doubts? It is natural to have questions. The acorn of honest inquiry has often sprouted and matured into a great oak of understanding. There are few members of the church who at one time or another have not wrestled with serious or sensitive questions. One of the purposes of the church is to nurture and cultivate the seed of faith, even in the sometimes sandy soil of doubt and uncertainty. Faith is to hope for things which are not seen, but which are true. Therefore, please, my dear brothers and sisters, my dear friends, first, doubt your doubts before you doubt your faith. We must never allow doubt to hold us prisoner and keep us from the divine love, peace, and gifts that come through faith in the Lord Jesus Christ.
So I'm not letting you off the hook. You got to do something after each lesson. And today's homework assignment is kind of a two-pronged approach. In the beginning of the class, I asked you in your study journal to list some of your most pressing questions about the church. If you haven't done that yet, stop the video and do it again. Be an obedient student. What are your questions, concerns, or doubts about any topic related to doctrines, policies, practices, or history? And if you have a long list, don't beat yourself up. Surely there's something in the church that you have a question about. That's part A. Part B, I want you to choose one topic to study, and not just for this week, but for the next 13 weeks. This is a 15-week course. Select any topic, select any gospel topic where you have a question, concern, or doubt. Over the next 13 weeks, study that topic until you find resolution. I'm going to teach you how to do this later on, by the way. Use your head, use your heart. Study that topic by study, which is your head, and also by faith, which is your heart, using reliable sources and the Spirit. So you're going to use here, you're going to use here. The goal of this exercise is to strengthen your ability to find answers and resolve issues by yourself, so you can tackle any topic. And at the end of the class, I hope that you share your findings with me after lesson number 15. Enough of the lesson today. Will you do that? Again, I'm asking you, will you try to turn your doubts into honest questions? I've given you an assignment, and I promise that if you do it, you're going to find some answers that you've not found before. Next lesson, we talk about my favorite person of all time, Jesus Christ. So until then, do your assignments and keep close to me. See you later.